Gotta get that bong rip.
What's up, everybody? And welcome to another edition of High Mythology, the show where we get higher than the mountain in the blue, and we tell you guys silly stories from mythology and folklore. Tonight, we will be bringing you the story of the three princesses in the mountain in the blue.
Surprisingly, they're actually not high.
Oh.
They're actually below.
Oopsies.
That's okay, because I never told you the story. You're a virgin to this one.
Yeah. Well, then maybe I get lower than that. Where is it coming from again? Norwegian folklore? Yeah, doing a little
Norway.
A little bit more Norwegian folk tales today.
Mm-hmm.
Hope you folks have been enjoying the last couple we've done. I sure had fun with them. Or the last one. Did we do one?
We only did one.
Yeah, the last one. This will make it a couple.
Hey.
Yeah. So without further ado, Campo, go ahead and take her away.
Sweet. There was once a king and queen who had no children, and they took it so to heart that they hardly ever had a happy moment. A lot of bitching. You know what I mean? She called him impudent, things like that.
It's all your fault.
One day, the king was standing on the porch of his house, looking out over his broad acres and everything he owned. There was plenty, and well, it looked too, but he did not feel that he could enjoy it as long as he did not know what would become of it after his death.
Oh.
As he stood there pondering, up came a poor old woman who went around begging for pittance in God's name. She greeted him and curtsied, and then asked what ailed the king, since he looked so unhappy. The king's reply:
There's nothing you can do about it, my good woman, though there's no point in telling you.
The old beggar woman just says,
There just might be. A mere trifle is often enough when luck is on your side.
It's a horrible.
I suppose the king is thinking that he has no heir to his land and kingdom.
And so what if I'm balding?
No, not hair, air. Sorry.
The king is thinking that he has no hair.
Air.
I am starting to grow bald.
He has no heir to his land and kingdom, but he need not grieve over that.
She told him his queen would have 3 daughters, but he must take good care never to let them out into the open before they were all 15 years old, or else a snow flurry would come and take them.
Jesus. Yeah. Just keep them locked up till they're 15, Otherwise, snow flurry.
Just a random one.
Random snow flurry.
When her time came, the queen was brought to the bed and gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. The following year, she had a second daughter, and the third year, one more. The king and queen were happy beyond words, but all of his joys, the king remembered to place a guard at the hall door so that the princesses would never be able to go outside. As the princesses grew, they became both pretty and graceful, and they were happy in every way, except for the fact that they were never allowed to go outside and play like other children. But for all they begged and pleaded with their parents, and for all they pestered the guards, they were told that they must not go out before all 3 of them were 15 years old.
We were told a snow flurry would take you.
One day, not long before the youngest princess reached her 15th birthday, so just a few months, the king and queen were out driving in fine weather, and the princesses were standing at the window gazing out. The sun was shining and everything was so green and pretty that they felt that they had to go out, come what might. So they begged and pestered the guard and pleaded with him to let them go out into the garden. He could see for himself how warm and sunny it was. Winter weather could never come on such a day. No, that didn't seem very likely to the guard either, and they were really insistent on going outside. They might as well, he thought, but only for a tiny little while.
I think they wanted to test it.
Yeah.
It's been 15 years. They're like, I don't
close
believe
enough.
it. The king is crazy.
Yeah.
His head consultant is a goose wearing a crown.
The guard still thought that he would go with them himself and keep an eye on them. And when they came into the garden, they ran hither and thither and picked armfuls of flowers and greenery. And they had never set eyes on anything so lovely.
Oh.
At last, they couldn't pick any more. But just as they were about to go inside again, they caught sight of a big rose at the other end of the garden.
Uh-oh.
It was far, far lovelier than any of the other flowers that they had found. So they simply had to have it. But at that very moment, they leaned over to pick the rose. A big snow flurry came, and they were gone.
Woof. Bye.
There was great sorrow throughout the land, and the king had it proclaimed in all of the churches. Yeah, it's very Christian-y, by the way. There's a lot of Christian. These are a lot of Christian stories.
So once you hit the folk tales, it kind of,
So he proclaimed to all the churches that the one who could rescue the princesses should get half the kingdom and his golden crown, and whichever of them
my friend the goose,
and whichever of them he wanted for a wife. There were plenty who wanted to win half the kingdom and a princess into the bargain. And highborn and lowborn set out in search of every corner of the land, but there was not one who could find the king's daughters, or even so much as a trace of them. Now, when all the high and mighty in the land had searched in vain, there was a captain and a lieutenant who wanted to try their luck. The king furnished them with both silver and gold and wished them Godspeed into the bargain. Then there was a soldier who lived with his mother in a little cottage just beyond the king's manor. What's wrong?
The fact that he still lives with his mother. Like the fact that they
shit happens.
prefaced that. And there's also a soldier who still lives with his mother, and he's in his 30s. Yeah.
He dreamed one night that he too was setting out to look for the princesses. In the morning, he remembered what he had dreamed and told his mother about it. The old woman says,
It may just be some witchcraft that has come your way. You must dream the same dream 3 nights in a row, or else it doesn't count.
Fuck you, bitch.
Yeah, who made you dream police?
I know, right?
Yeah.
But the 2 following nights, the same thing happened, as on the first. Both times he had seen the same dream again, and he felt that he had to go out. So he washed himself, put on his uniform, and went up to the kitchen of the king's manor. It was the day after the captain and the lieutenant had set out. The king says,
You best go home, boy. The princesses are far too above your station. Too far above your station is what normal people say. And besides this is all that, I've given out so much travel money I am nearly broke. There is no more left for today. Come back next week and we will see what the goose decrees.
The soldier simply replies,
If I am going, it must be today. I do not need travel money. I only need my flask filled and food in my knapsack.
Sorry. But he must have plenty in his knapsack, as much beef and pork as he could carry. Well, he would get that as long as there was nothing else he wanted. As it says.
It's as long as there's nothing else.
So he set off on the way, and he hadn't gone many miles before he caught up with the captain and lieutenant, who had set out the day before, mind you.
Yeah, they're taking their time.
Fucking slow ass.
They're really just. It's more about the journey for them. Like, we probably won't find her, but it's been a while since we've got out and spent some time together, right, Captain?
When the captain sees the soldier's uniform, he asks,
Where are you off to?
The soldier replies,
I'm going to try and find the king's missing daughters.
The captain replies,
So are we. As long as you're on the same mission, you might as well come with us. If we cannot find them, then neither will you.
After they had been walking together for a while, the soldier turned off the highway along a footpath leading into the forest. The captain was bewildered and asked,
Hey, where are you going? It's best to stick together on the highway.
The soldier just shrugs and says,
So it would seem, but this is the way I am going.
So he kept to the path, he did, and when the others saw that, they turned off the highway and came after him. The path took them away through the woods and over great moors and up a narrow, out-of-the-way valleys. At last they saw daylight, and when they were out of the forest, they came to a long, long footbridge, which they had to cross, and on that bridge stood a bear on guard.
Oh, God!
It reared up on its hind legs and came towards them as though it wanted to eat them. The captain is scared and says,
What will we do now?
To this the soldier replies,
They say bears are wild for beef. Who says that?
Oh, I guess it is.
Everyone knows it's Sasquatch. We've all seen the Jack Links commercials.
So the soldier threw it a haunch. In this way, they managed to get past, but at the other end of the bridge stood a lion, and it roared and rushed at them with
Oops.
gaping jaws as though it were going to devour them. The captain says,
Now we better turn our noses homeward. We'll never get past here alive.
To this the soldier just simply says,
Oh, he doesn't look that dangerous. I heard lions are crazy for pork. It just so happens I have half a pig in my knapsack. I have half a pig in my fanny pack.
And so he threw the ham to the lion, and it started gnawing and eating it. And so they got past that place too. In the evening, they came to a large and splendid manor. Each room was finer than the next, and wherever they looked, it sparkled and shone.
Sparkle.
No, it didn't shine, it shone.
Shone. It's shone.
But that was not going to fill anyone's belly, I can tell you that. The captain and the lieutenant went about jiggling their money, and would gladly have bought themselves something to eat. But not a soul did they see, nor a crumb of food did they find. So the soldier offered them beef and pork from his knapsack, and they soon pocketed their pride and fell to with a will. Fell to with a will.
Oh.
They helped themselves to what he had, and though they had never thought that they had never tasted food before.
Yeah. But those guys are just poor planning. It's also poor planning.
I think they were supposed to buy food along the way, like hoping to find a grocery store.
We'll stop at a grocery store along the way. It's
We're gonna go off the beaten path, bitch.
It's the medieval times. There are grocery stores.
So the next day, the captain said that they would have to go hunting and get themselves something to live on. Close to the manor was a dense forest, full of rabbits and wild fowl. The lieutenant was to stay at home and mind the house, and cook the rest of the provisions. In the meantime, the two others killed as much game as they could carry home.
Chow.
But when they came to the gate, the lieutenant was so feeble that he could hardly open it for them. The captain asked,
What happened to you?
Well, he had told them that as soon as they had gone, there came a tiny little fellow with a long, long beard, walking on crutches, and begging so piteously for a penny. But no sooner had he gotten it than it fell on the floor, and for all he scrambled after it, he just couldn't get a hold of it. So stiff and crooked he was. The lieutenant says,
I felt so sorry for the old creature, so I bent down to pick up the penny for him, but all of a sudden, he was neither stiff nor feeble anymore, and he started using his crutches on me. Till I could hardly stir a limb. He just beat the hell out of me. Just beat my poor ass all over the place. I just, goddamn.
The captain was a dick and says,
He's always been a dick. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You're one of the king's men, letting an old cripple give you a thrashing. Pooh! Pooh, I say. Tomorrow I'll stay home. Then it will be a different story.
The next day, the lieutenant and the soldier went hunting, and the captain stayed at home to cook the food and mind the house. But he fared no worse, and certainly fared no better. As the day wore on, the old fellow turned up and begged for a penny. He dropped it as soon as he got it, and it was nowhere to be found. So he asked the captain to help him find it, and he had no better sense than to swoop down and look for it. But hardly had he bent over before the old fellow, started whacking him with his crutches, and every time the captain tried to get up, he was hit back down.
Yeah, you son of a bitch.
He received such blows that stars danced before his eyes. When the others came home in the evening, he was still lying on the same spot with a vacant look on his face.
Rah.
Fucking idiot.
I got my ass kicked.
On the third day, the soldier was to stay at home while the two others went out hunting. I feel like you should leave the crippled at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's pretty dumb. How much food can you really catch when you're that crippled?
Yeah, it's the two beat up guys who are going out there. I'm gonna go hunting, but I can't see out of my right eye. He whacked me really good.
So the captain told him to take good care and said,
For the old fellow will certainly beat you to death tomorrow, my boy.
The soldier just smiles at him.
Oh, I am too fond of life to let an old cripple deprive me of it.
Sorry, it's just funny.
Yeah.
They were no sooner out of the gate than the old fellow was there begging for a penny again. The soldier simply says,
I've never had money, my friend, but food you shall have, as soon as it is ready. But first, we need to get a fire going. You need to chop some wood with your crippled old ass.
the old fellow says.
I can't.
The soldier replies,
If you can't, then you can learn. Come along, down to the woodshed.
There he dragged out a huge log, cut a crack in it, and drove a wedge into it so that it became a long, deep split.
Splitting logs.
The soldier says,
Now you must lie down, straight along this crack. Then you will soon learn how to chop wood. In the meantime, I'll start chopping.
well, the old fellow was a fool enough to do so. So he lay down and sighted along the log. When the soldier saw that his beard was well down into the crack, he nodded out the wedge and started soundly thrashing the fellow with an axe handle.
Ouch!
With the handle, okay, relax. He didn't cut his head off.
I would have.
Then he swung the axe over his head and swore that he would split his skull if he didn't tell him that very instant where the king's daughters were. The old fellow shouted,
Huh? Oh, spare my life! Spare my life! I'll tell you. East of the manor, there's a big mound. On top of that mound, you're to dig loose a square piece of turf. Then you'll see a huge slab of rock, and under it is a deep hole. You must lower yourself down the hole. Then you will come to another world, and there you'll find the princesses with the mountain trolls. But it's deep and dark down there, and you must pass through both water and fire. Rah.
See, we're going down, we're not going up. When the soldier had found out what he wanted to know, he released the old fellow from the log, and he wasn't slow in bidding farewell. Peace, bitch.
Peace, bitches! Deuces!
When the captain and the lieutenant came home, they were amazed to find the soldier alive. Really? Could you be really that surprised? Well, he told them how he had fared from first to last, and where the king's daughters were, and how they were to find them. They were as happy as though they had already found them. And when they had some food, they took a basket and all the rope and cord that they could find, and went to the mound, all three of them. There, they first cut loose the turf, just as the fellow had said. Underneath, they found a great big stone slab, and it was all they could do to roll it aside, I guess.
The big old slab.
Then they tried to find out how deep the hole was, so they tied a piece of rope together, first 2 lengths and then 3, but then found no more at the bottom, and at last the time came for the first. And at last, they had to tie together all the pieces that they had, both thick and thin. Then they felt it reach all the way to the bottom. I don't know how that's possible. How do you know when it's at the bottom?
Oh, you can feel it. You can feel it.
The captain wanted to be the first to descend. You may be sure. He says,
When I tug on the rope, you must be quick to haul me back up. Ah.
the hole was both dark and dismal, but he thought he had better go through with it. as long as it got no worse. But all at once, cold water started sprouting in about his ears, and he was frightened to death and started tugging on the rope. Fucking pussy. Then the lieutenant wanted to try, but he didn't fare much better. When he was well past the flood of water, he caught sight of the flames blazing away below him, and he was so frightened that he too had to turn around and return to the top of the shaft.
I thought it'd be in the other order.
When the soldier came into the basket, he kept going through both fire and water, all the way down to the bottom. Down there, it was so pitch black that he could not see his hand in front of his nose. Nor did he dare let go of the basket either, but he went round in a circle, groping and fumbling about. Then he caught sight of a tiny glimmer of light a long, long way off, just like the dawn. He walked towards it, and when he had gone part of the way, it started glowing brighter about him. And it wasn't long before he saw a golden sunrise in the heavens, and the daylight was as bright and clear as in the real world.
Oh, hollow earth theory. Yeah.
First he came to a great herd of cattle, with cows so fat and sleek that they glistened.
Moo.
And then he passed them, and then he came to a large and splendid castle. There he walked through many rooms before he met anyone, and at last he heard the whirring of a spinning wheel. And when he came in, there sat the king's eldest daughter spinning copper yarn. And the room and everything in it were a burnish copper color.
Copper colored.
Just copper everywhere.
Copper everywhere.
The princess explains,
My, have Christian folk come here? Lord have mercy on you. What do you want here?
I want to rescue you from the mountain.
My good fellow, be gone. If the troll comes home, he'll put an end to you right away. He has 3 heads.
I don't care if he has 4 heads. Now that I've come, I'm going to stay. Also, you should know I am in my 30s and still live with my mother.
okay.
Well, since you're so stubborn, I suppose I'd better see if I can help you.
Then she told him to crawl behind the big brewing vat, which stood out in the hall. In the meantime, she would make the troll welcome and stroke his heads until he falls asleep. Because that's why they stole her. Let's stroke my head so I can fall
Stroke
asleep.
my head while I fall asleep.
She says,
Then, when I go out and welcome or call the tens, you must come in as quickly as you can. Now go out and try and swing the sword that's laying on the table.
but the sword was too heavy. He couldn't so much as budge it. So he had to take a strength-giving draught from his drinking horn that was hangable behind a hall wall. I don't understand what that means, but whatever. Then he could just raise the sword from the table. He took another swig, and now he could lift it with ease. So he took a really big one, and he was able to swing the sword easily as could be.
Oh, strength potion.
All at once the troll came rushing in with a noise that shook the castle.
Fee, fi, fo, thumb. I smell the blood and bones of a Christian in my house. Oh, wee.
The princess simply says,
Yes, a raven flew past just now, and it had a man's bone in its beak, which it dropped down the chimney, so I threw it out right away and swept up after it too. But I suppose it still smells.
I can smell it all right. Ooh.
But come now, I'm going to stroke your head.
Oh, I like that.
Then it'll be better when you wake up.
The troll agreed right away, and it wasn't long before he was so sound asleep that he was snoring. All three heads. When she saw that he had fallen asleep, she propped up his heels with a chair and quilts and started calling the hens. Then the soldier tiptoed in with the sword and cut off all three of the troll's heads with a single blow.
Oh, cha-cha-cha!
The princess was merry as a fiddle and went along with him to her sisters so that he could rescue them from the mountain too.
Oh, right, that's right. They got her sisters also. I was not aware of that. I really only came for one.
First they crossed a courtyard and then passed through many great halls until they came to a huge door. The princess says,
This is where you must go in. Here it is.
When he opened the door, he saw a great hall, and everything inside was the finest silver.
Oh,
There sat the middle
fancy.
sister spinning on a silver spinning wheel. Oh, Thaviel, what do we have here?
To rescue you from the troll.
My good fellow, be gone. Psh. If he finds you here, he'll take your life on the spot.
That's too bad, but I suppose I shall take his first.
Well, if you really want to, then you must crawl behind the big vat out in the hall. But you must hurry and come as soon as you hear me calling at the hens.
Hens.
I forgot my voice for you. Sorry. I got stuck on your king's voice. So this one's a little bit like the king.
Yeah.
But first he had to see if he were strong enough to swing the troll's sword, which laid on the table. It was much bigger and heavier than the first one, and it was all he could do was budge it. So he took 3 swigs from the horn, and then he was able to lift it. And when he had taken 3 more, he could brandish it as though it were a pancake turner.
He's just chugging off the horns today.
After a short while, there was a terrible rumbling and a crash, and immediately after, in came the troll with 6 heads.
Oh, more heads.
The troll.
Oh, yeah. Fee, fa, fo, fum. I smell the blood and bones of a Christian in my house.
Yeah. Just fancy a little while ago, a raven came flying past with a thigh bone and dropped it down the chimney. I threw it out, and the raven dropped it back down the chimney again. And at last I got rid of it and hurried to smoke the smell out, but it seems to be lingering.
I can smell it. I smell it all right. Yeah.
But he was tired, so he laid his heads on the princess's lap, and she stroked them until all the heads were snoring.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Then she called in the heads, and the soldier came and chopped off all 6 heads as though they were growing on cabbage stalks.
Chow! Cabbage heads.
She was no less happier than her sister was, as you can imagine. But in the midst of their dancing and singing, they remembered their youngest sister. Took you that long to remember your little one.
Oh, it's so awesome. We should run a
She's the
we should
reason
run away
why you
together.
guys, still couldn't go outside.
Yeah.
If you think about it. She was just a couple months. You guys were already 15.
Yeah, you could have gone outside. Shit, yeah, that's actually right. If the youngest one's almost a couple months. Yeah.
And so they led the soldier across one more large courtyard and through a great many rooms until he came to the 3rd princess in the golden hall. She was sitting there spinning golden yarn on a golden spinning wheel, and from floor to ceiling the room glittered so that it hurt to look at.
Yeah, it is fucking shiny in here. I should have brought some glasses.
She was sitting spinning the... Oh, yeah, sorry.
Spinning.
She says, "Heaven help you and me." Go, or else he'll kill us both.
Come at me, bro. Let him try.
There you go.
It's the same thing.
There you go. I'm sorry, guys.
Bring it the fuck on, is what I say.
The princess wept and pleaded, but it was of not in the slightest use. He had made up his mind to stay, and that's fucking that bitch. As there was no other way out, she told him to try the troll sword out on the table hall. But he could only budge it, and it was even bigger and heavier than the other 2. So he had to take down the drinking horn from the wall and take 3 swigs from it. But even then, he could only just barely lift the sword. When he had taken 3 more strength-given swigs, he swung it as easily as a feather.
I fucked up.
Then she made the same plan with the soldier as her 2 sisters had made. And when the troll had fallen asleep, she would call in the hens, and then must come quickly to do away with him. All at once there was a booming and a shaking as though the walls and the ceiling were about to fall down.
Perfect.
Except it's always blurry. You're the worst.
Oh, the worst.
The troll says,
Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood and bones of a Christian in my house.
He said that while sniffing the air with all of his 9 noses. 9.
9.
Yes, would you believe it? Just now a raven flew past and dropped a man's bone down the fucking chimney. I threw it out, but the raven threw it back in, and back and forth it went. But in the end, I had to bury it. And I tried to air out the room as thoroughly as possible, but I'm afraid a little bit of odor still lingers.
I can smell it all right.
Well, come here and lay your head down on my lap.
Oh, yes.
Then it will probably be better after you've taken a nap.
Lap nap.
Mm-hmm. And he did just as she said. And when he was snoring like a beast, she propped up the heads with benches and quilts so that she could get away and started calling them the hens. Then the soldier tiptoed in his stockinged feet and struck out at the troll so that 8 heads flew off at the same time.
Cha-cha!
The sword was too short, so he couldn't reach any further. But the 9th head woke up and started roaring.
Fee, fi, fo, fum. Thumb. I smell a Christian here.
The soldier replies.
Yes, here is the Christian.
And before the troll could get up and grab hold of him, the soldier gave one more blow so that the last head rolled off.
Chow!
You may be sure the princesses were glad now that they didn't have to sit and scratch the trolls' heads any longer. There was no end to the kindness they wanted to do for that man, but who had freedom.
Oh, hey there.
They were all willing to give their virginity away.
None of you mind now that I live with my mother.
The youngest princess wrenched off her golden ring and knotted it into his hair. Then they gathered as much gold and silver as they thought they could carry and started for home.
Whee!
As soon as they tugged on the rope, the captain and the lieutenant hauled up the princesses one after another. But when they were safely up, the soldier realized that he had been foolish not to seat himself in the basket first and go up ahead of the princesses. For he didn't trust his comrades at all.
You probably shouldn't.
He decided to try them, so he put a large, huge lump of gold in the basket and jumped to one side. When it was good halfway up, they cut the rope and the basket crashed down onto the rocks and the pieces flew about him. The captain says,
Now we're rid of him.
and then they threatened to kill the princesses if they didn't say that they were the ones that had rescued them from the trolls.
There's a wife for you in it, too, if you would have just helped your homeboy up.
The princesses didn't like it one bit, especially the youngest one. But life is precious, so the captain and the lieutenant had it their own way. Now, when the captain and the lieutenant came home with the princesses, there was indeed great rejoicing at the king's manor. The king was so happy that he didn't know which foot to stand on. How about both of them, you fat fuck?
I'm so happy I don't know which one of my feet I should stand on.
He took his best bottle of wine out of the cupboard and poured out a cup of welcome for the two of them. And if they hadn't been made much more before, they were now. I can tell you that. I don't know why.
I'll fucking tell you that. I like how they add that in the story.
Always, yeah.
I'll fucking tell you that. Huh? You're telling me the whole story. Well, I will.
So they strutted back and forth and preened themselves like gentlemen for the whole day. Now that they were getting the king himself for their father-in-law, for it was clear that each would wed a princess, whichever one they wanted, and that they would divide half the kingdom between them. They both wanted the youngest, but for all they begged and threatened, they got nowhere.
Weirdos.
Fucking weird. Yeah. She's still 14, technically.
Well, didn't she get? It's been a while, right?
She
probably hit 15, right?
She's about to, I'm sure.
But that's still fucked up.
It's fucking weird. I prefer the 13-year-old or the 12-year-old. Thank you.
Bros, dude, yeah.
She wouldn't have them in any shape or form, so they talked to the king about setting 12 men to guard her. She had been so gloomy ever since that she had been in the mountain, that he said, that they were afraid that she might do herself some harm.
Oh.
This the king agreed to do, and he told the guard to take good care of her and follow her wherever she went day and night. Now, a great feast was to be prepared for the 2 eldest princesses, with much brewing and baking. This was to be a wedding of like which none had ever seen nor heard of.
Best wedding ever.
And they brewed, and they baked, and they butchered as though it would never come to an end.
They brewed and baked and butchered.
In the meantime, the soldier wandered aimlessly back and forth in the other world. He was so sad to think about that he would never be able to see another human face nor the light of real day. But he had to keep himself busy with something. So he went around from room to room, and 1 day, and 2 days, and then many more.
Oh.
He rummaged in all the cupboards and drawers, and poked about in the shelves, and looked at all the fine things that were there. After a while, he came to a drawer in the table and pulled out, and inside laid a golden key. So he tried the key in all the locks there were, but not one did it fit. Well, he came upon a wall cupboard over the bed, and in that he found a rusty whistle. He says to himself,
It might be worth trying to see if there is any sound to it.
maybe.
I love to wrap my lips around the rusty whistle.
And he put his mouth to it, and before he knew what was happening, there was a whirling and rushing on all sides, and all of a sudden down swooped a flock of birds so large on the ground it was black. They asked,
What does our master wish today? What?
"Well, if he was their master," said the soldier. Did I say that?
Huh?
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Then he would certainly like to know if they could tell him how to get back to Earth. They replied,
Our mother hasn't come home yet. If she can help you, then they're back doesn't know way.
"So their mother, huh?" he says. So he blew the whistle once more, and after a little while he heard something beating its wings a long way off. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm
You're
good.
just looking at your lines.
I'm good over here. I'm good.
I told you I was going to leave it in there.
I'm going to keep a straight face for this one, I'm sure.
At the same time, a wind started blowing so hard that he was thrown from one wall of the courtyard to the other, like a wisp of hay, and he hadn't grabbed hold of the railing. If he hadn't grabbed hold of the railing fence, he would have almost certainly have been blown away at once. Thereupon, an eagle glided down in front of him. It was so big that it was beyond words to describe. The soldier says,
You come hard, you do.
The eagle replied,
Oh, I come the way you blow.
Then he asked if she knew the way for him to escape out of the world they were in now. She says,
Nestlings can't get away from here. You'll need to slaughter 12 oxen for me so that I can eat my fill. Then I shall try to help you. I will do it. Do you have a knife?
the soldier replies,
No, but I have a sword.
Ching ching.
Ching-ching-chang. Ah.
And when the eagle had finished off the 12 oxen, she bade him to slaughter one more and take it along as provisions for the journey. She says to him,
Every time I open my beak, you must be quick and throw a piece in, or else I won't be able to carry you aloft. I'll just stop giving a fuck.
Well, he did just as she asked and hung 2 big sacks of meat around her neck. And then he snuggled down amongst her feathers. Then the eagle flapped her wings, and with that they were off like the wind.
I'm also going to need you to feed me cigarettes while I'm going.
While the air whistled past them.
With the air whistle past. I love the way you blow, by the way. Never stop that.
The soldier had all he could to hold on tight, and it was only by the skin of his teeth that he managed to fling the pieces of meat into the eagle's beak each time she opened it. At last daylight began to glimmer above them, but now the eagle was losing speed and began fluttering her wings. The soldier was ready to grab the last haunch and throw it to her.
Throw it into her. Throw it to her.
Yeah, throw it into me. You got me all warmed up with the blowing earlier.
Then she got back her strength and flew on. After she had sat and rested for a while in the top of a big fir tree, she set off with him again so fast that they flashed past the land and sea wherever they went. Close by the king's manor, he climbed down, and the eagle flew home again. But first she said that if there was anything that he wanted, he had to only blow the whistle, and she would come at once.
Oh yeah, big boy, I'll come back around anytime. You just hit me up and let me know you're gonna blow hard again, and I'll come in a jiff.
Oh my God. In the meantime, everything was in readiness for the king's manor, and the day was approaching when the captain and the lieutenant were to wed the 2 eldest princesses. But they were not much happier than the younger sister. Never a day went by that they didn't grieve and cry, and the closer that came to the wedding day, the sadder they grew. At last, the king finally asked what was wrong with them.
What's the fucking deal?
Bad dad. He thought it was more strange that they were not happy. And gay.
My goose is a doctor. He can prescribe you antidepressants.
Now that they were free and saved, and were to be married as well. They had nothing, they had to say something. So the eldest princess said that they would never be happy again if they couldn't get a board game like the one that they had played with in the mountain in the blue. The king thought he could certainly get one for him, so he sent word to all the best and most skilled goldsmiths in the land to make a board game of gold for the princesses. But for all they tried, there was not one who was able to make such a game. At last, all the goldsmiths in the land had been asked to save except for one. And he was a feeble old man who hadn't turned out a proper piece of work in many years. But he only tinkered with little silver work, just enough to keep himself alive. So the soldier went and apprenticed himself there. And the old man was so happy to get an apprentice. Boom, he was a fucking alcoholic, tell you what.
Yeah, I just so fucking I'm so glad.
He hadn't had an apprentice in a year and a day. And that he dug out his flask from the cupboard and sat down to drink with the soldier. Yeah, I told you he's an alcoholic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you want to work for me? Yeah. What do you need me to do? What time is it? 9 a.m. You want to drink some whiskey? Okay.
It wasn't long before the spirits had gone to his head, and when the soldier saw that he persuaded the smith to go to the king and tell him that he could make the game for the princesses. The old man agreed to do this on the spot. Drunk as fuck.
Yeah, fuck it. Let's go. Let's fucking go. Let's do it, bro. We'll let's stop by the taco place on the way.
Makes me want tacos. The old man agreed on the spot, for he had made things just as fine and fancy in his day. He swears.
He swears. I did. I swear it.
When the king heard that there was someone outside who could make a copy of the board game, he wasn't slow in coming out. The king asks,
Is it true what they say? That you can make a game like the one my daughters want?
Yes, it was quite true, replied the smith, and he stuck to his story. The king replies,
Excellent! Here is some gold for you to make it from. But if you fail, you shall lose your life, the goose has decreed. Seeing that you have come forward of your own accord.
And the old man was given 3 days to make the game, and the next morning...
The king is horrifically bad.
The next morning, when the goldsmith had slept off his befuddlement, he wasn't anywhere near so proud. He cried and carried on and swore at his apprentice who caused him to get himself into mischief while he was so tipsy. Now, the only way out would be for him to do away with himself right away.
It's the worst wake up. Who are you? Oh, you work for me? What the fuck did we get into last night? Did I talk to the king? Oh my god, do I have to make a game in 3 days or get killed? Oh my god, dude.
I think I would rather just kill myself. For there was no point in pleading for his life, the old man thought. If the most skillful goldsmiths couldn't make such a game, it wasn't likely that he could manage it either. The soldier simply says,
Don't worry about it. Just hand over the gold. I'll get the game, all right. But I want a room to myself to work in. I must have my privacy.
This he got, and the old man's thanks into the bargain. But time dragged on, and he did nothing, and the goldsmith went about moaning because he would never get on with his task. The soldier simply says,
Never bother yourself about that. It's a long time to the hour. If you are not satisfied with what I've promised, you can make the game yourself.
See, he's getting snooty back too.
He is.
He's fucking learning.
It's just going to be his dick in a box, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
I know exactly what the princess is wanting. I've seen the look in her eyes.
It was the same tale that day as the next, and when the smith heard nothing, neither hammer nor file from his room, all the last day either, so he gave up all hope. For now, there was no longer any chance in saving his life, he thought. But as the night drew, the soldier opened his window and blew his whistle. And thrice the eagle appeared and asked what he wanted. He tells it,
The golden board game which the princesses used in the mountain in the blue. But no doubt you want something to eat first. Out in the barn I've got a couple of ox carcasses for you. You can have them.
Thanks.
Oh, thanks, big boy. I just love the way you blow that whistle, so I was going to come either way.
When the eagle had eaten them, she didn't lose much time, and long before the sun rose, she was back with the game. Then the soldier put it under his bed and lay down to sleep. At the crack of dawn the next morning, the goldsmith came and pounded on his door. The soldier simply says,
You've been doing quite a bit of running. All day you've rushed around as if you were completely mad. If I am not going to be allowed to have a night's rest, then you shall need to get yourself another apprentice. I'm sorry, I got angry there.
But this time neither pleading nor praying was of any use. The goldsmith insisted on being admitted, and at last he pushed up the latch. And as you can imagine, there was no end to his whining. But even more delighted than the goldsmith were the princesses. When he came up to the king's manor with the game, most delighted out of all of them was the youngest. Have you made this game yourself? She asked.
Is this 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons? Or...
The goldsmith replies,
No, to tell the truth, it was not I, but it was my apprentice.
Well, I would really like to see that apprentice then.
I bet you would.
And all of them wanted to meet him, actually. And if he valued his life, he had better come.
I would love to meet
Pretty
this
much.
kid. Otherwise, I will let loose 30 tigers in his house.
The soldier...
But if he comes, he gets $1,000.
Hey. Score. The soldier feared neither lords nor ladies. And if it gave them any pleasures to look at his rags, they might as well have their wish gratified. The king's daughter knew him right away, and she pushed aside the guard and ran over and offered him her hand and said to him, Good day. How nice to see you again. Then she said to the king, Here is the man who rescued us from the trolls in the mountain. He's the one I want to marry. And she swept off his cap and showed him the gold ring that she had fastened to his hair.
See?
Well, then the full story of the way is that the captain and the lieutenant had carried on what they had carried on came to light. They had to pay for it with their lives. And that was the end of them.
They were eaten alive by goldfish, as I decree.
But the soldier got the golden crown, half the kingdom, and was able to wed the king's youngest daughter. On the wedding that day, they drank and reveled both long and merrily, for all who could revel, even if they couldn't all rescue the king. Even if they couldn't all rescue the king's daughters. Whatever.
Huh.
And if they hadn't drunk their fill, they must be sitting and drinking and reveling still.
Oh! Oh! Finish it with a medieval joke.
Medieval jokes that just go right over my head. But
I
I
know,
just read
the
it like it's
medieval
nothing.
jokes are always silly. Oh.
Sweet.
Yeah, that was.
What do you think?
That was
Norwegian.
pretty fun.
This time I was by both of them.
Yeah,
They
pretty
both
fun little tale.
collaborated.
I definitely liked it. I like the trolls. The trolls having the fucking old lines from the
Actually, their lines were just fee.
Fifi, fo fo fo.
No, just
Fifi. Fifi!
I smell the blood and
Hey!
bones of a Christian in my home.
Yeah.
Wow.
Fifi.
I was like, wow. How about fee fi fo thumb,
Fifi, fo
bitches?
fum thumbs. Yeah. Our source for this episode was Norwegian Folktales, the book. Selected from the collection of Peter Christian
Bjornsson.
Bjornsson and Jorgen Moe. Yeah,
Okay,
check it out.
Nobody can see that shit. Boom.
Boom. It's a good book.
Yeah.
If you like folktales, if you've been
These
digging
are
these Norwegian
all old
ones.
school, so
Yeah.
you can't copyright this shit, Disney.
Yeah, I love this stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow,
Share.
all
Shout it
that
out.
stuff. Shout it out. Yeah.
Tell people.
Tell people. Dress up as a troll and run around and just yell, "High mythology."
I guess that's legal.
It's legal.
As long as you're not
Literally
dressing up
trolling
like a
people.
fucking.
I approve of literal trolling people more than I do of internet trolling
I
people.
mean, as long as you're not those weird people that stand in a clown's outfit.
yeah, fuck those people.
Yeah, that fucking freaks
Fuck
me out.
those
I will
people
run
right
your
away.
ass
I
over.
will fuck up a clown.
I do not care.
yeah. Yeah. I don't
You're
care if you're
terrifying
just
to
trying
me.
to creep me out. I will fuck up a clown.
Mm-hmm.
Just putting that out there to the world.
Word. You guys
Word.
have a good night, everyone.
Have a good night, everybody.